I think after a few years at Tassajara, things were really starting to unfold for me, and I realized how useful this practice was for an everyday life, and it was just so practical, and it addressed some things at a very practical level that I had never really been able to put my finger on in modern life. For instance, why things come up the way they come up. I mean, I've been taught, well, if you get angry, here's all these things you can do. You can count to 10, or you can distract your mind, or you can, whatever. Or if you get anxious, there's things you can do. But what actually addresses the root thing of why I got angry or anxious in the first place? And not just in my head, but like just the body sensation of somebody did something and then I have this reaction to it. And noticing those things starting to morph through this practice, that things would happen, and just being surprised that my body reaction and my psychic reaction, what's going on in my head reaction, where I go, is starting to be different and more livable. In a sense, if you really want to boil it down, I started noticing that it was much easier to be this person with this mind and this body in this moment. That it was just easier. It was just more livable. It was just more tolerable. And, it wasn't something you could necessarily describe, how you got from A to B, but you knew that the practice you were engaging in was the big contributor to that. And I think when that started happening, I started thinking about shifting from this is going to be something cool for me to take back and use in the tech field or the financial field, to something more along the lines of, wow, I want to teach other people about this and bring other people to understand how this could be useful in their modern life. That's when I started thinking about ordaining.
For the question of where does all of this stuff come from, I remember we had touched on this a little bit in one of our previous chats too, but and I know it might be too general of a question, but did you ever come to an answer on where all this stuff comes from, the origination of it, and your relationship with that?
Well, in general, I mean, I think that it comes from all the millions and billions of things that give us 1 second of consciousness. I mean, it's your physical biology, all the decisions you've made in your life, and the way that the rivers have formed in your brain in regard to habit patterns, things you inherited as far as ways your body, secretes adrenaline, things that have to do with your level of testosterone, the things that your great grandmother passed on to you from your DNA, what was happening in your life at formative times when your brain was being formed, when you were going through different emotional stages of development, what was happening in your home. I mean, all of these things that impact us on top of, our city, our state, and how other people view us, our birth order, and all these things that are impactful. We're born as like this malleable piece of clay, and that all this stuff is happening to us every second, and we don't realize it. But we're just this open sponge when we're born, and we've inherited a certain set of things that are infinite, and then all this other stuff happens to us. And that eventually ends up being, um, the organism that we become. And we end up having all these narratives and all these stories about who I am and who my parents are and what my gender is and my place in society and my race and my ethnicity and my religion and my intellect and my physical ability. We get all these stories about ourselves and we build them into ourselves inherently. And so if I've got a certain story that I've digested since I was 3 or whatever, that has to do with what being a male in America means, and that's a deep piece of my identity, and then someone does something and it's threatening to that identity, and then I have a body reaction to it, that's something that I come by honestly. And so I'm sitting in the middle of things that to trace their roots back to their origins is absolutely impossible. But to generally know that, I am a product of this universe and not detached from it, and I've inherited things physically and psychically that are way beyond my control, I can exhale a little bit and realize I come by it honestly and try not to go to war with it.